DSP tries it.
What's up, everyone? It is DSP, and welcome to another edition of DSP Tries It. This one's a long time coming. A lot of people earlier this year, when I created my DSP gaming channel, I had done a preliminary review of a couple new joysticks that were basically brand new models at the time, but I hadn't had a significant amount of time to play on these joysticks yet. And so I wanted to basically go and go to a couple tournaments and give them a fair shake and try them out and then come back and give you some feedback. Well, unfortunately I got busy and really didn't have a chance to do that, so now I'm taking the opportunity to do that. The first stick we're going to talk about is the Hori Arcade Fight Stick Tournament Edition S. This is the stick that was released earlier this year to coincide with the release of Super Street Fighter 2. I'm sorry, Super Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 4. As you can see right there on the front, that's exactly what the art says. Two different models of this stick. Well, first of all, you can get it for either Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, your choice. And depending on what you get, you'll get different, different setting up here. Obviously, if it's a PlayStation 3 stick, it doesn't have the Xbox Live logo there or anything like that. And the button coloration is different as well, depending on which stick you get. Now, you can also get two different art styles. There's this one right here, which is the Ryu and Ken dual art style with a white top. There's also one with a black top with just Ryu. I personally think they're both pretty cool, but I think the black one's a little bit neater. I just happened to be that this is the one that I had on top of my stack of sticks, so I wanted to show it to you. Now, this joystick uses all Sanwa parts. Now, I've gotten the question 100 times, Phil, what's the difference between Sanwa and Famitsu? What does that even mean? And what's the best one? Okay? Basically in Japan, there's two major companies who are in competition in regards to creating parts for Japanese arcade sticks and arcade cabinets. One company is called Sanwa and one company is called Famitsu. Sanwa, at least for the most part, when it comes to home joysticks like this one, seems to be the market leader. Famitsu, from what I'm to understand, actually is making some headway in the Japanese arcade market, meaning if you were to go to Japan and go to one of their arcades, chances are, more often than not, you'd be playing on Famitsu controls. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to review this Sanwa stick. I'm going to tell you its features. I'm going to tell you what the advantages of having Sanwa parts, and then later I will also make a review of a Famitsu stick that I have, and I'll explain those parts as well. But anyway, this stick, right off the bat, I think it's really neat because unlike the previous stick from last year, unlike some other sticks that have been made by Hori in the past, basically this top it's a shiny top because it has this nice artwork on it. You're not going to get nasty looking fingerprints or anything on this stick. It's always going to look pretty sweet, even if it isn't the cleanest. And that's a plus because I remember the original Hori joysticks for the PlayStation 2, this was really when the Japanese style joysticks became mainstream in the United States. They had this metallic top, silverish, and the thing got dirty all the time. It just looked disgusting. And you always had to constantly be cleaning it and wiping it. It was almost like a mirror finish, and that was a pain in the ass. So having a top like this is definitely an advantage. Now, the joysticks, Sanwa joysticks themselves, okay, are probably, if I were to describe between a Sanwa and a Famitsu, I would say Sanwa is the tighter of the two. And what I mean is, it seems like there's a less of a distance between neutral position, which is what a joystick is when no one's touching it, and moving it all the way in one extreme of a direction. It seems like there's less of a movement needed to hit that extreme, okay? And that means that when you're doing moves, it's going to be probably slightly quicker to do a Dragon Punch or a Fireball than it's going to be on a Famitsu stick. There's pros and cons to that. The pros is that if you really need to get something out super fast, you can probably get it out a lot easier. The con is that if you need to do a move where you need to kind of revert to neutral first, it could be a little bit more difficult. Because let's say you're holding forward, now you need to do a Dragon Punch. Well, to do a Dragon Punch, it's forward, neutral, down, down, forward, plus punch. A Shimizu stick, it actually snaps to neutral a little bit easier because of just the way it is. It's a looser stick. This is a tighter stick of the two, so it's a little bit harder to go like that in one motion. With the Shimizu, it's a little bit easier. So there's pros and cons, like I said, and it all depends on your own personal gaming style. It depends on what stick you spend more time with. I personally have played on Sanwa sticks a hell of a lot more than I've played on Shimizu sticks. And therefore, I find that there's certain things I could do on Sanwa easier than I could do on Shimizu. For example, and I know this is going to sound weird, I could probably do 360s. And when I mean that, I mean command throws like Zangief's spinning pile driver. I can do a lot easier on a Sanwa stick than I can do on a Shimizu stick. And the reason for that is because I think it's a shorter distance to the extreme. So I can just go like that very quickly to get that 360 motion and get the throw. However, I find it a lot harder to do moves on the fly, on reaction, on a Sanwa stick. I think it's a little bit easier on a Shimizu because if it's a move where you need to revert back to the neutral state, the Shimizu can do that a little bit faster because it's a looser type stick. I know if you've played on these sticks before, you probably understand what I'm saying. If you haven't, unfortunately, it's really hard to articulate in words. It's really more of a feel to the stick. Basically, this stick feels like there's a little bit more resistance as you move it around, but the trade-off is that it's less of a distance to travel to get to your extreme. The Shimizu stick feels like there's almost no resistance. It almost feels like the stick is floating in the air, but at the same time, it seems like there's more of a distance to hit the extreme. And I'll show you that when I review a Shimizu stick. But anyway, there's pros and cons to both sticks. I really don't think that there's a definitive choice by anyone in the competitive gaming community. Most Americans are using Sanwa parts, but I only think that's because, like I said, when the Hori sticks for the PS2 came over to the United States, they came with Sanwa parts. So I think Hori really kind of pushed that back in the day. Now today, Hori actually offers sticks with both. So now you can take your pick, and it's like, well, it's your personal preference. Now, also I want to talk about are the Sanwa buttons. Sanwa buttons, in my opinion, are the best buttons. And the only reason I say that is because, as you can see here with these buttons, I'll zoom in a little bit for you. These buttons are very easy to press. They're very, very, very low, okay? American buttons are chunky buttons, okay? American buttons are probably 2 to 3 times as tall as these buttons, so it takes longer to push them in and get a response. These buttons are very low to the stick, very contoured to the stick, and so all you need to do is tap it, and immediately you're going to get a response when you press that button. And it's also the click style, where you hear a nice, firm click on your button when you push it. If you push it and you don't feel that click or it feels mushy, you can tell when your button's broken or needs a cleaning. And so, just a little pro tip for anyone. To clean one of these is really, really, really easy. You just take some Windex, you spray it on top, you take a paper towel, you wipe it into the button. It's okay to let a little bit of Windex soak into a button like this, because it'll actually get all the grime and the nastiness out from in between the grooves of the button. Just don't soak the thing. Just get a little bit of Windex in there, rub it down, and you'll actually fix a button that otherwise you might have thought was broken. But anyway, from my personal tournament experience, I think that these buttons are excellent. I think that you get the quickest reaction from these buttons, and once you get used to them, if you play with these Japanese-style Sanwa buttons over American buttons, you can actually do better things. And I stand by that statement. I think that because they're more reactive, because they're easier to get a response out of, you can do better combos. It's easier to do links. It's a better button overall than American buttons, American styles. So, in my opinion, I think Sanwa's the best. Other people might argue that Shimizu is the best, which is more of a plunger style, and we'll talk about that when I review a Shimizu stick. But overall, what do I think of this stick? Well, from what I'm to understand, I actually went to the store the other day. they're still selling these for $140. The price is not reduced yet, and that's unfortunate because last year there were two different models of Street Fighter 4 joystick. There was the standard edition, which was just the joystick that was a mini version of this. Basically, it didn't have any of this on the side. It was kind of like this small, and those were going for, originally I believe they were going for $70, and by late last year, those things were going for like $40. The price dropped dramatically. Then they also had their regular tournament edition, so it's basically the predecessor to this stick. It didn't have nice art or anything like that, but it was basically the same layout of the stick. Those originally were going for like $150, and I saw those around for like $90. So I was like, wow, that's a really good value, you know, for the joystick. Well, this year it seems like these sticks, the prices have not gone down. But I would guarantee you that next year, with the release of games like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and the new Mortal Kombat, there will probably be a whole new slew of joysticks that will be released for those. And once that happens, probably the prices for this joystick will go down. So right now, it started as $150. I'm still seeing it in stores for $140. But I would guarantee you that once the new versions of the joysticks are released, this will go down in price. So the only other thing that I do want to mention is that it is a heavy stick. They've purposely weighted this stick to weigh something like 5 to 6 pounds because they want it to have some weight on your knees when you're playing a game. Most people these days, when they don't play on a table like this. They actually sit down and place the joystick on top of their knees. Simply because when you go to a tournament setting, they don't always have tables for people to set up on and things like that, but you should usually be able to get a chair. So it is a little bit of a heavier stick, but that was done purposely to aid you in a tournament. If this stick weighed nothing, if this stick was light as hell, when you go to do a move, it might actually move off of your lap, and therefore you lose your positioning, and you might not be able to block, and it might throw you off during a tournament match. So that's why they do that. So overall, how do I rate this stick? Well, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Ooh. That's what happens when you play games for freaking 24 hours on a midnight release. But anyway, how do I rate this stick? I would say for the total package, I'm not rating the parts individually, but as a total package, considering it has an official Sanwa joystick, official Sanwa buttons, a pretty neat top with artwork like that. And by the way, just so everyone knows, because some people asked when I first showed this, the start and select buttons are on top, and they do that on purpose because they don't want you to accidentally hit those during a tournament match. And also there is cord storage on the top. This cord, it's a very long cord, actually wraps up and goes inside of the joystick. So when you're traveling, this cord is not loose all over the place. It actually is stored inside the joystick. I'm going to give this stick a 4. And the only reason I give it a 4, excuse me, is because I've still seen some problems with these, which I know sounds odd, but I've seen people mashing. So what I mean by mashing is there's a move in a game where you have to press buttons or the joystick for additional hits. I've seen these joysticks malfunction and still pause and do things during a match, so it's still possible that that could happen. So I have to give it a 4. It's not perfect. I still stand by the statement that if you make a custom stick, that's how you're going to make the perfect joystick, because you get to pick your parts, pick the coloration of your parts, pick the artwork, everything. You know, this stick is great, but for $140, I would wish that I could get my own art. I would wish that I could not get the fucking stupid Xbox colored buttons. And even on the PS3, most of these buttons are grayish. And it's like, I don't want gray buttons. What if I want, you know, a different color? Why am I limited to what they made the buttons the color of? You know, if I'm paying that big time kind of money, I want to be able to get what I want custom. So, you know, I think that these joysticks for the price, $140, you're going to get what you pay for. For, you know, I think a really nice custom joystick, you pay $200 for it, but it's going to last you 5 years, and it's got custom stuff on it, you know, artwork, your own color and things like that, logos and stuff. I think that's worth a lot more. So, anyway, as a retail bought joystick out of the box, I give this Hori Tournament Edition Arcade Fight Stick S a 4 out of 5. Stay tuned because I will be doing another DSP Tries It with the Sumitsu sticks to explain the comparison between the two. So anyway, this has been another episode of DSP Tries It, and I hope you enjoyed it.